Hello, it's time for Combat Patrol Carnage. So as you know, I have been off ill with a rather bad cold, and well, I'm not 100%, but I'm 89.9. So getting there, last 10% to go. So what I'm here to do is we're going to actually do some catching up. I'm not bringing you one, but I'm bringing you 2 issues of Combat Patrol today. And we're going to kick things off with 28. It's a pretty straightforward issue. There's no building, no painting. We're straight into articles. So we got 4 articles of lore to read, a short story, and a naming ceremony. Plus we have a couple more pages of the core rules to go over. And then we're going to get into issue 29, which has the paint guide for our jet bikes, as well as a couple of pages of lore, and we get to try out our jet bikes by taking them into battle. So of course these issues came with frames, and well, they are here. 4 rather identical looking jet bike frames, but we have P2, the central frame, and P3, the final end frame. So that gives us our 6 jet bikes, plus we of course have our flying stands and bases. So this video is going to be dedicated solely to 28. As I said, there's not a lot for us to do, so we'll get straight on into that. We'll name our wind riders, we'll read our lore articles and our short story, and take a look at the rules. Then we'll get into issue 29, which is going to be a bit more of an in-depth video, because we still have that paint guide we're going to cover. We have our lore, and we also have a game to play. So it shouldn't be too bad. I'll try and do the lore and the painting guide in one, as it's a fairly simple, straightforward paint guide. Once we get 3 layers of Mephiston Red, it's a simple matter of picking out the details, and that's pretty much it for the moment. And then we've got the couple of pages of lore to read, so that shouldn't be too hard to get through. Then we're into our gaming articles, so we've got a couple more pages for the core rules, and we try out our Wind Riders in a little game to see how they do. And then hopefully with issue 30, when we get back on track for normal weekly videos, I'll be able to do a full Combat Patrol game, as we'll have the complete Combat Patrol of the Eldari. And since I'm still behind on painting the Tyranids, they're going to have to face the Space Marines. So before we hit the table, don't forget to do all the usual. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and drop me a comment down below. Love hearing back from you guys. It goes a massive way to help this channel out. And yeah, it's nice to have a little natter. Everyone gets left out now, every now and then. And it's good to have a conversation with people just to, you know, get that hobby out of your head. So if there's anything you've ever wanted to discuss, drop a comment down below. We'll have a little friendly conversation. If you want to join my Discord, there's a link on my social page for you to join, and we can have a conversation over there. Finally, Combat Patrol Carnage is proudly sponsored by warbay.shop, your one-stop supply for all your hobby needs. They stock everything you need for getting started, from your models to your hobby materials and your gaming equipment as well. They stocked a lot. And they've also started stocking the full range of Games Workshop products. So if you want some extra items that you might have trouble getting hold of in your local store, check them out. They might be able to pick them up for you. There's a link for warbay.shop in the video description, and who knows, you might find yourself a hobby project for a bit of a bargain. I'm also an avid Warbay shopper myself. I've recently picked up a few things. A nice Slanesh pin to add to my gaming bag. A Inquisitorial Rhino / Razorback. A Grey Knight Brother Captain metal model, much better than the current resin version of him. And I've also picked up my favourite pose of Gandalf, the Rivendell model, as I kind of want to do an additional Wizard Week at some point. I've done Saruman and I've done Radagast. I really think I should do Gandalf. I know it's a bit of a grey matter, but I think I can do a nice little fun paint tutorial for him. See what I did there? But anyway, let's head to the table and we'll start diving through issue 28. So here we are with issue 28, and we've got our second set of jet bikes. So we've got our little flying stand with 28-ish mil base. So 2 sets of 2 stands, which we don't actually need, we only need 1. So yeah, there's that. And our frame is pretty much the same as our last one in layout. Just a few different numbered components, namely the torso, the head, the front fairing there. But other than that, everything else is numbered identically. And yeah, to that. So that's our second one. I can't wait to get on and build these. Then we can get on with our paint guide in the next issue. So yeah, we'll put these to one side for the moment. And let's dive into issue 28 so we can get straight into everything pretty much. So what do we have? Full contents, read articles, hosts of the dead, Drukhari, Warzone Bastille, the Horus Heresy, and Bonds of Honor Part 7. Collect article for our Wind Riders, and then play we have our core concepts. So let's hit our first reading article as we learn about the hosts of the dead. A Wraith Knight towers over the raging battlefield. Even death does not end the service of the warriors of the Eldari. They must fight on when their craft world calls on them. Amid any Eldari army stand the legions of ghost warriors, constructed from psycho-conductive wraithbone and animated by the souls of the fallen warriors. They stride purposefully across the battlefield, protecting their living kin and their home. All manner of these constructs serve on the battlefield, from whole units of wraithblades wielding axes and blades to mighty titans that rise up over even the largest of opponents. Their wraithbone bodies respond in an organic way to psychic energies, moving in a way that is completely unlike any other constructs in the galaxy, and using technology that no other species has been able to replicate. They are stronger than plasteel and more resilient than ceramite, and will gradually heal from any damage they do suffer, meaning that a ghost warrior will never be off the battlefield for long. Wraiths. The ghost warrior constructs that serve in the Azayani armies do not see the world in the same way as mortals around them. Neither do they see the way machines do, probing the world through sophisticated sensory arrays. Instead, the ghost constructs see the world as a shifting mass of spirits, perceiving the world of the living only through the veil between life and death. When called to war, the craft world spirit seers deploy alongside these ghost warriors, acting as a bridge between the realm of the living and the world of the dead, guiding their wraith charges onto targets and lending their clarity and focus to the ghost legions. There is no art more beautiful and diverse than the art of death. So we've got a couple of examples of wraith-like creatures. So we've got the living spirit seers who guide their wraith constructs with their psychic visions. We have the basic foot soldiers, the wraith guard, which we'll be getting later on in the collection. Can't wait for these little awesome models. And then we have the towering wraith knight, the Eldari answer to the Imperial Knights. And yeah, I can't wait to get hold of one of these myself for my Iandan army. It's going to be a bit of a challenge to paint. And yeah, it's got some nice weapon options. So we got, I believe these are sun cannons. We got scatter lasers. You can swap these out. You can take a giant shield and a sword. There's different types of guns you can take as well. Yeah, these are awesome models, and they can be really posable too. There's like little pins and stuff that you can cut out, and you can then enable them to move and pose a lot better than some of the other kits around. Really interesting models, and yeah, can't wait to try and get hold of one and build it myself. So shifting from the dead to the devious, we have a look at Drukhari. The might of the Drukhari bears down on the Tau. The Drukhari are arrogant and callous group of Eldari who lurk in the settlements in the webway. They delight in causing pain and suffering, seeing their own needs as paramount over those of their victims. Ever since the fall, they have managed to live much as they did before, reveling in the lives of degenerate villainy. Since before the fall of the Eldari, the Drukhari have lived in the webway in great port cities, the largest of which is the dark city of Comorragh. Deep in this alternate dimension, the Drukhari were insulated from many of the effects of the birth of Slaanesh, and they have continued with the same debauched and extreme lifestyles that brought about the fall so many years ago. However, they are not altogether immune to the curse of the Eldari. Slowly their souls are drained by She Who first, and when they die their souls will escape to the warp, there to be devoured. In order to replenish their energy, they take vast numbers of prisoners whose anguish they use as fuel to renew their souls. As long as they maintain their energies by tormenting others, they are immune to the passage of time, and they have become almost immortal as a result. Ever in search of new victims, they have become experts in inflicting the utmost pain and degradation on those who they see as lesser beings. To the Drukhari, all other species are unworthy of life and are suited only to become playthings to their sadistic captors. A Drukhari raiding party leaves devastation behind. Real space raiders. Raiding parties often leave Comera deep in the heart of the webway to carry out raids on real space, emerging through one of thousands of hidden webway portals. When a Drukhari raiding party descends on an unfortunate planet, it is in a whirlwind of violence and destruction. Few have ever managed to mount an effective defense, and frequently only a husk of the rat civilization is left behind. Yeah, this is seen in Iron Within, which is a brilliant short on Warhammer Plus, which sees a beleaguered Imperial Guard garrison desperately holding out, seeking for the Astartes to come to their aid. But yeah, things don't go to plan, let's put it that way. Uneasy allies. The Drukhari and the Aziani are ancient kin, and they have more in common with each other than they do with other species of the galaxy. Both of them believe in the ultimate supremacy of the Eldari, and both aim to keep Slaanesh at bay. Occasionally, when their goals converge, they may mount joint operations together and pool their resources. But this is no happy alliance. Distrust and distaste will be felt on both sides, and they will be back at each other's throats as soon as the alliance has served its purpose, if not a great deal sooner. Aziani and Drukhari fight alongside each other. So yeah, a temporary alliance, Samhan Eldari and a homunculi and some witches and grotesques facing off against a Tyranid threat. Moving swiftly on then, we got a double page spread, I believe. Double checking, yes. So we're looking at one of the many war zones in the galaxy, Warzone Bastior. In the galaxy-spanning Imperium, the Bastior subsector played a small but vital role. A tangle of worlds provided food, soldiers, and other offerings to the Imperial war machine. But with the re-emergence of High Fleet Leviathan, the small area suddenly became the centre of the desperate struggle against the Tyranids. At the start of the Fourth Tyrannic War, the Imperium became aware of two tendrils of High Fleet Leviathan heading towards the Segmentum Solar. In response, they began to muster their armies and build up their armour. To deal with the immediate threat, they developed small elite strike forces called Soul Blades, as they were preparing for a more solid defense. Imperial commanders nominated worlds that lay in unstable warp routes to serve as anchor worlds. One of the most important of these was the world of Sanctum in the Bastior subsector, which is the home world of the White Templars Space Marine chapter. Through relentless attacks, the Soul Blades succeeded in slowing the two tendrils, but just as it appeared that the Imperium might be heading to victory, a psychic silence descended on the outer worlds of Bastior, and the shadow and the warp overwhelmed Astropower communications. A previously unknown tendril of High Fleet Leviathan, dubbed Grendulus, was uncoiling beneath the galactic plane. Imperial forces pulled back to the anchor worlds in the three central systems. The Tyranid onslaught was fierce, but so was the Imperial response, for it appeared that the outcome of the war would be decided here in the Bastior subsector. Hordes of Tyranids threatened to overwhelm Imperial defenders. So there's two opposing forces in this war zone, the Imperium and the Tyranids. Imperium. The Imperium are taken by surprise as the shadow and the warp overwhelm psychic communication, and the sector goes silent. Hurried counter-strikes are mounted, while defense plans are put into place. Tyranids. As war has joined the Grendulus tendril of Hive Fleet Leviathan snakes up into the Bastille's subsector. Under their ferocious onslaught, worlds fall as the Tyranid forces concentrate all their might on the offensive action. So we've got a couple of maps and a look at some of the different systems. So I won't go into too much detail, but these are the different subsystems. So we got Formendire, we got Pyremote and Castile. So 3 very different subsectors within Bastille. And yeah, very interesting. So Sanctum, home of the White Templars. So we've got various other things. We've got a laboratory world, fortress world, mortuary world. Then Pyremote, we've got radstorms that inhabit a lot of the system. We've got quite a few dead worlds and death worlds. We've got a fortress world. We've got the central star as a hive world, a scriptorum world where they make parchment. And then Castile system. So again, we got a gravity reef, which a lot of the planets end up going through in a cycle around the central star. We got a scholar progenium training world. We got an agri world, a fortress world, and a couple of hive worlds there as well. Then we got a map of the larger Bastille subsector. So we got the onslaught coming from the Grendulous tendrils here, the vanishment zone, star ghouls, predatory moons, cursed gulf, and void worms, notable malignus class anomalies. We got orc presences there. We got splinters of the Grendulous fleets, imperial star system that's not imperial, stable warp routes, stable subsector warp routes, and malevolous class anomalies there as well. So quite a few different bits and bobs. Moving on there, we got to look at some of the dramatis personae. Many heroes fought for the Imperium during the countless military action in the Bastille subsector during the Fourth Tyrannic War. Here we look at some of the most famous, those who took the fight to the Tyranids as the Grendulous tendril threatened to overwhelm the subsector. First Captain Agamemnon. Severus Agamemnon was the captain of the First Company of the Ultramarines. He led a strike force against the Tyranid invaders, holding them back from important worlds and gathering biosamples to investigate their weaknesses. Trajan Valorous. General Captain Trajan Valorous is the first of the Adeptus Custodes, the Emperor's elite personal bodyguards. He is a hands-on commander and was one of the first to join the fight when the distress calls came from the besieged Bastille subsector as the Tyranids attacked. Varro Tigurius. Chief Librarian Tigurius commands the Ultramarines Librarius and holds a great deal of knowledge on which his allies can depend. He is a powerful psyker who has a deep and frightening insight into the alien mind of the Tyranid foe, having seen into the hive mind. And survived, may I add. Finally, Lord Solar Leontus. Arcadian Leontus, the Lord Commander Solar, the ultimate leader of the Astrominotaur's vast armies. He is a master tactician and a military scholar who led the human forces of the Imperium during the Fourth Tyrannic War. There we go. Some very interesting players in the battles of the Imperiums fight against the Tyranids. From the most recent fight to one of the ancient fights, we have our first look at the Horus Heresy. Let none stay our wrath. None today know what the Imperium might have been. As the Great Crusade reconnected the lost strands of humanity, it seemed as though significant progress was being made against the great perils of the galaxy. But the worst was yet to come, and the nascent empire was dealt a blow from which it would never fully recover. As the tide began to turn during the Great Crusade, the Emperor continued to look at the outward threat, and he was ever victorious against the external forces that threatened his great work. But he was blind to the treachery that was being nursed from within. The powers of chaos began to whisper to those who he should have been able to trust the most, his Primarchs. Newly returned to him and elevated to positions of great power in his empire, it was his most favoured son, Horus Lupercal, who led the rebellion. He recruited half of the Primarchs to his cause and embarked upon a military campaign against the Emperor, plunging the whole galaxy into a devastating civil war. Eventually, Horus led his forces to Terra, where he and the Emperor duelled. Horus was slain and the Emperor was grievously wounded, barely alive after the struggle. The Emperor's dying body was placed on a life support system that took the form of a golden throne. There he remains, motionless to this day. At the end of the heresy, Horus and the Emperor met in a fierce duel. The Ultramarines fight another battle in the endless struggle against chaos. An empire in decline. With so many worlds razed, and with the Emperor catatonic, the Imperium has remained but a shadow of what it might have been. As thousands of years rolled by, the Imperium entered a dismal regression, falling into fear, superstition, and ignorance. Now the technology they depended upon is barely understood, and a religious zealotry is firmly established at the heart of its paranoid government. Meanwhile, the threats against their falling empire only get greater with every passing year. Treachery unending. After the defeat of Horus and the end of the Civil War, the traitor legions were in disarray. Hunted by the remaining loyalist forces, many of them hid in remote regions of space or retreated into the Eye of Terror. There they have become further corrupted by the powers of chaos. Now they are an unending scourge on the rest of the galaxy, emerging from the immaterium to slaughter and destroy in anything from small raids by single warbands to entire crusades carried out by colossal armies. Abaddon leads his Black Legion back into real space on an epic crusade. Let none escape. Slaughter them all. So there we go, a little bit about the Horus Heresy and what happened between the Imperium and the now known forces of Chaos. There's still quite a bit that's to be covered, but yeah, nice introduction. Moving on, we got next installment in the saga of Sergeant Askerton, and I must admit, this is probably a very boring, very small, short story. I read through it already, and it didn't grip me as other chapters have. There's very little in the way of action. But into it we shall go. Bonds of Honor, Part 7. Here we are now, my boys. Quickly, into the hall. You must be hungry. Let's get you some bread. Now, there's nothing more wearing on your teeth and the soul than the bread that comes out of these kitchens. And this bread will have been out in the air for some hours now, so mind you take it with some water. It's a humble meal, but it will sate your appetite. Besides, with every challenge now set before you, you'll earn some new privilege. Before you know it, you'll be eating hot food, sitting on a chair, and you will feel warmth again. For now, accept the privations and replenish yourself. I promise you shall never be denied anything that you truly need. It's funny, the road before you is so long and uncertain. To have come through the trial this far, you have all shown a certain quality that marks you as worthy to begin the transformation. Yet not all those who make it here will be successful. I'll be willing to bet that more than the fear of certain pain and possible death that lies before you, the one thing that truly casts down your spirits is the biting wind and the bad bread. This is what it means to be a Silver Templar. Many who summon great courage in battle will nonetheless bend and break if they must endure weeks of uncertainty in the perishing cold, with little food and only their sense of duty to sustain themselves. If you are commanded, you will still keep watch at your station day after day, when there is no relief in sight. The Silver Templar will. Now seat yourselves down on the floor and enjoy your bread, such as you can. I must continue telling you of Sergeant Askerton and his squad. Chaplains of the Silver Templars have a role to play in battle, as well as on their home world. They had searched and left the planet, finding only the surface had been scoured clean for scraps. So where did that leave them? Well, the sergeant had an inkling that the scrappers wouldn't have gotten far, and undertook to search every scow and merchantman nearby. Now, don't be thinking you can just go charging here or there as the fancy takes you. The sergeant didn't simply go without permission, and he first went to his superiors. But there is little to be said on that, other than to say that they understood that an oath had been sworn, and he was allowed to depart with the blessings of his leaders. His oath was written upon a strip of parchment and sealed to his armor by his chaplain, declaring that he would recover his rifle before returning. And off he went with his chosen brothers, wasting little time as they boarded a strike cruiser that was headed out with a full company to confront the Tyranids on a new battlefront. It was not long before the cruiser flew past the squad's first target. Some civilian junker, few but the bravest or most desperate would attempt to fly. It was no doubt leaking radiation onto its unprotected crew inside, but with luck, the thing looked as though it might implode first, offering them a cleaner death instead. This was, of course, no great void ship, but just some shuttle barely fit to reach a nearby moon. The ship turned tail and tried to flee before them as the sergeant and his men boarded a Thunderhawk gunship and flew towards them. It might have bought itself a second or two of spare time, but was no match for a Space Marine vessel. Few ships in the galaxy are. The squad docked with it moments later while it was still trying to escape. Sergeant Askerton gave them the courtesy of knocking on their door before entering, but of course they didn't answer. Summoning his fury, Askerton put his boot to the door, and in 2 swift blows it was bent out of its frame. A rush of air flew by as the pressure equalized between the vessels. And without a second thought, Askerton fired his pistol into the vessel. Almost at once, a fire started within the ship, and its desperate crew fled towards the Space Marines, crying out for mercy. The sergeant was only too happy to oblige and put them painlessly to their rest. Ignoring the flames, he strode in, followed by his battle brothers. But he knew at once that judgment was not there, for he could not hear its call. They searched through the ship anyway, each taking a section, but they were soon to be interrupted. It was Mectras who saw them first from the scrapper's cockpit. A flash so brief that at first he thought he had imagined it. But then he saw it again, the briefest streak of colour. He cried out an alert to his brothers, and they came to his side, staring out into the blackness. Then the streak came a final time, but with them staring straight at it. There was no mistaking it this time. They had caught the attention of a scout ship of the Eldari. We are a brotherhood forged in the fires of war. Strike cruisers. Strike cruisers are the rapid response vessels of the Adeptus Astartes, and they can hold a whole company of Space Marines. They are used to deploy troops to threaten Imperial worlds and objectives in war zones. When at their destination, a strike cruiser will remain in space, and troops will deploy, transport or teleport directly into the battle. Although their main role is carrying infantry to war, strike cruisers are heavily armed and capable of engaging enemies out in deep space. So there we have it. Nice little bit of a short story, and like I said, it wasn't much, but it's progressing, and I reckon the next installment will be a bit more of a scrap as we face off against the Eldari. Up next, though, we need to bring in issue 23, our pen and a dice, as we name our Windrider jet bikes. So, let's put a bit of paper behind so we can protect the page behind. And we'll turn to our naming charts. So, what's our leader's name? We have table 5 and column 2, Rain. Just double check my list. I don't think we've had Rain. No. So that's a good one. double N-E. And their unit epithet is 6, followed by 1. So Rain's Fate Riders. That's very fitting. And let's roll for their tactics. We got a 4. So these Wind Riders race each other across the battlefield, hoping to gain the honour of being the first to strike the foe. So a very challenging group of individuals. So yeah. So Rain and her Fate Riders, a very fitting name. So we have technically built, as we built 2 last issue. But that's all we can tick off for the moment. So we'll be coming back to this, obviously, later on to tick everything off. And the last thing to look at then is their datasheet. So this is the datasheet for your Wind Riders. The datasheet contains all the information needed to use your Wind Riders in games of combat patrol. File this datasheet away safely so that you can use it in games and scenarios in future issues. We don't need this as we have the Eldari data cards. But we have a movement of 14, toughness of 4, strength even, saving throw of 3+, 2 wounds each, leadership of 6, and objective control of 2, so they're pretty good at holding objectives. Ranged weapons have scatter lasers, so we've got 2 models of the scatter laser, which is 36-inch, 6 attacks, strength 3, 6 attacks, ballistic skill 3+, strength 5, no AP and 1 damage. And then we've got 4 models with twin shuriken catapults, which are assault and twin link weapons, 18-inch range, 2 attacks each, 3+ to hit, strength 4, -1 rend and 1 damage. And then they have basic close combat weapon profile. Then they have patrol squads. So a squad of 6 can be broken down to 2 squads of 3. Each one must be containing 3 models, and one of those models must be a model equipped with a scatter laser. So they have the Strands of Fate faction ability, and we have Swift Demise. So each time a model in this unit makes a ranged attack that targets the closest eligible target, reroll hit rolls of 1. The target attack is within range of an objective marker, you can reroll all hit rolls instead. So that makes them a little bit extra deadly. And what makes the shuriken catapults extra deadly is the twin linked rule. So twin linked shuriken catapult has the twin linked rule. This means that every time you make an attack with this weapon, you can reroll wound rolls. You don't have to use the reroll, so make sure you only reroll wound rolls that have failed. So that's pretty handy. Or if you want to make sure a unit survives so you can charge into it with something, yeah, reroll all your successes into fails. Moving on, we have a couple of pages of the core rules. So this is core concepts. So this section introduces various rule terms that you will find throughout the core rules and beyond. These key concepts form the basis of the Warhammer 40,000 rules and are essential for every kind of battle. So missions, obviously you need missions in order to play your games. Armies, you need armies in order to play your missions, in order to play your games. Armies are made up of units which require data sheets and often have combining or connecting keywords. We must remain within unit coherency. So we see a squad of Sternguard veterans here remaining within 2 inches at least of each other, and a squad of termagants here also remaining within 2 inches of each other. Then we have a look at engagement range. So this is the closest range a unit can be, which is more often referred to as melee. We've got a little hobby tip there, hint and tip even, looking at wobbly model syndrome, which is where a model can be placed, but it's not exactly stable. You can, of course, choose to place the model on a flat surface, but it is still considered to be in its position for the cause of making attacks and such. Next up, we have a look at the battlefield and then terrain features, and then we also have measuring distances. We also have a little bit more about visibility, so how to determine what model is visible and what model is not visible. So model is visible if any part of the model can be seen. So even with this pipe across him, this Infernus Marine is still visible. Unit is visible, as we can see at least one model of the unit even behind the bunker here. We can still target it. Fully visible because he's out in the open, fool. And then we got a unit fully visible here as they're, again, out in the open on the battlefield. Yeah, looking pretty good. Moving on then, so we got a look at dice, re-rolls, roll-offs, and sequencing. And finally we have a table for the battle round. So there we go, that's it for issue 28. Like I said, short and, well, not short and sweet, it's been half an hour. But yeah, there we go, we've managed to cover issue 28, and we're moving on to issue 29, which brings us our final part of our Wind Rider jet bikes. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to film now the introduction, then I can get on and build, and we'll bring in everything, one of each of the two different weapon variants to paint.